When I first published my first books, I consider myself a print publisher. I mean, I've always had print editions of all my books, and the ebooks were secondary to me. It was something that I did on the side, and I didn't think that this would be a big part of my revenue. I mean, I grew up loving books and thinking of myself as a book writer, not a story writer. So my focus was always on selling books, and I would do signings and go out in public, you know, and have my boxes of books. When my ebooks started taking off, I thought, well, this is handy because I can just sit at home and write, and people are buying my books in every state. I don't have to drive around and take my books there and do signings. And when the first e-reader I got was just to buy my own books. I ordered one of the very first Kindles, and I would buy my books and download it to the device just to see what it looked like, because I was formatting it myself and there was no way to test it. I would call a friend and say, hey, can you buy my book and tell me if it looks okay? And so finally I had to, you know, get a Kindle to test it. And once I had the Kindle, then I said, oh, I'll buy this book. And then I started reading them, and I realized that it wasn't books that I'm in love with, it's stories. And I confused the two. I still love books, but I love books that, like you just showed me books in Chinese that I can't read, but it's Kevin Kelly's book. Like, I would love to own that book, but it's because I love the book, and I can't read it. And you have to separate those two loves. You can love books and you can love stories, but you can't confuse the two for each other. And an e-reader means you're enjoying the story and you're not caring about the form that it comes in.
So now you are defining yourself as a story writer instead of a book writer, right?
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, my audiobooks do very well, and those are there's a lot of work put in by another artist, someone who does all the voice acting, and they just take the manuscript that I wrote. So when people download that audiobook, it's just that I wrote the story. Someone else helped put the form, which is their voice. So I think it's helpful to not worry about the way your story is delivered. We're going to have some new way of reading books, you know, 100 years from now, where it's just like directly implanted in your brain, or maybe you go to sleep at night and you dream the book at night instead of just having random dreams. Like, for 8 hours you live in this book world. And this sounds like science fiction, but so does the phone in my pocket. It sounds like science fiction 20 years ago. So what if my books are sold in that new format, you know, as dream books, you know, 100 years from now? Owning my own rights is going to be handy, you know. Not that I'll be around in 100 years, but so I think, you know, getting hung up on if it's a scroll, if it's a stone tablet, none of that matters. It's just the story.
So did you spend a lot of time changing your attitude toward this part? Because you thought yourself as a book writer, but now you think yourself as a story writer. Oh yeah, absolutely. My attitude's changed. And, you know, a lot of it was seeing that other people were reading and enjoying this form. I wouldn't have, it would have been years later that I looked into this, I think. Because I was like the people that you hear who don't want to check out ebooks and don't want to read that way. I was like that for a long time. And then I saw, okay, other people are enjoying this. And like I said, I got an e-reader to check out my own book on it. And trying out new books, it opened my eyes to the advantages. As someone who loves books a lot, I thought I would never enjoy ebooks. My house, all the houses I've lived in have just been wallpapered in books. Like, every wall, I have to build bookshelves every time we move to hold all of our books, thousands of books. And moving them is a back-breaking endeavor. I mean, I always mess up my back every time we move because of all the boxes of books. And my wife and I plan on getting on a sailboat and doing some big travels. And weight is a big concern. And I can't wait. I mean, when we do this, we're going to take our e-readers and move onto the boats with thousands of books, every book at our disposal, without having to take heavy and expensive books with us. So for people who want to travel and have an active lifestyle and who are Americans are moving more often now. They don't stay at the same job 30 years. We move all over the place. Those are all huge advantages. And so there's something exciting about knowing I'm not having to leave my books behind. When I go, I can take them all with me.
Mm-hmm. So did you take a lot of time changing your mind? Or just like a...
Slowly over, it probably took a couple years, and to this day, there's a lot of books that I prefer to have the physical edition. Mm-hmm. But if it's a fiction work that I'm going to read one time and never read again, I prefer it on an ebook. It's, until you try it, you don't realize the advantages of not having to hold the thing and manage the pages. You can hold it in one hand. It's not heavy. If you're reading a big, thick book, you can just tap it with one finger. You can leave it on the counter and the pages. When I was reading physical books, I would have to have like my silverware, when I'm eating a meal, and you lay your fork and your knife across to hold the pages open. But an e-reader just lays flat, and you can eat your cereal and tap one edge of the screen and it goes to the next. So it's incredible advantages.
So the first thing is to try, right?
Yeah, you have to try it, and people are scared of new things. For other people, especially people who like genres that I write in, like science fiction, we love new things, and it's less terrifying.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So would you please share with us what kind of books you usually read when you have time, and what kind of book you're going to recommend to your readers to read when they have time, when they are all alone on an island or on the sea?
It's funny you say that. So I used to work on boats, and I spent 8 years as a yacht captain, and I always told people, I always wanted to read War and Peace, but it's a very massive book. And I thought I would never read this. The only way I'd ever read this if I was on a deserted island. And lo and behold, we broke down in this little island in the Caribbean called Isla de Providencia. And my first mate had a copy of War and Peace with him. And we spent 2 months stranded on this island. So I grabbed the book and read the whole thing. And it was wonderful. I don't know why I put it off for so long. It's such a incredible book. But it was really funny that I always said, this is the only way I'd ever get this book read. And when I ended up on this island and I saw a copy of the book and he'd already finished it, I was like, oh, you got to be kidding me. Now I have to read that. And it's totally worth the read. Most of what I read is nonfiction. I read mostly to learn, and I want to learn about the human condition, what makes us operate the way we do. And that informs my writing. That's why my stories are very character-based and have to do with emotions and interactions between very real people. And I learn how to do that by reading works on psychology and history and biographies and science. And that's helpful for me because I don't get lost reading someone else's style. You read very dry information, almost like textbooks. And then when you write your own stories, you have your own voice, and you don't sound like anyone else.
Mm-hmm. I saw you recommend people to read Kevin Kelly's What Technology Wants.
Love that book. It's so good. Yeah, books like that you wish could be required reading for every human being. Another one is The Blank Slate by Steven Pinker. I think every person should have to read that book because it explains so much about who we are as people. And the more we understand why we act the way we do and why we respond the way we do, the less frustrated we are, the less confused we feel about why do I do that, and why does that person do this all the time? And once you uncover these mysteries, then you're able to make better decisions and get out of routines. And so it's not really self-help, but the more you learn, the more you can help yourself.
Mm-hmm. What else? Anything else?
Yeah, Judith Rich Harris, No Two Alike, for parents. I think it's such an important book. It's how kids can be raised in the same house and be completely different from one another. And it's how important people's peers, their friends, what an important role they play in how they turn out. So yeah, books like that. And if you like history, Bill Bryson, I think he's hilarious and everything he writes is great. And I just read One Summer, his newest book, and it's wonderful. I mean, it's American history, but I just love it.
拜。